Hello and welcome back. I'm glad to be joined by Salomé Jashi, the writer, producer, cinematographer, and director of Taming the Garden. Thank you for being here.
No, thanks for having me here.
So in the old days of the Soviet Union, they would parade missiles through the streets, and now they parade trees. What do you make of that?
Oh, that's a very challenging question. Well, it's just a continuation of of the tradition of in a way an authoritarian way of governing and handling people. Yeah. While in old times, like somebody powerful would decide what to parade, now it's another person. It's one other powerful man deciding what to parade in the streets.
You know, and that powerful man, if we trust Wikipedia, which I say tongue in cheek, but if we trust it, you know, the billionaire and former Prime Minister Bidzina Ivanishvili, is that right?
Yes.
Would seem to be the greatest thing ever to happen to Georgia. The whole thing reads like an encomium to his liberal policies, both at home and abroad. His expanding of healthcare when he was prime minister, improving infrastructure, funding the arts, and his deep, deep commitment to ecological and environmental conservation, including saving indigenous species of plants, fruits, and vegetables. So are we to buy any of this?
Oh, well, it's well, you could buy some of it, but it is very he's a very controversial figure, I should say. Yeah, I mean, he before he became the prime minister, before he came to the politics, he was this anonymous man. Nobody had ever seen his photograph even, and he was famous for funding theaters, for example, the refurbishment of theaters. He would give salaries to the actors, to the theater people, to the especially theaters. He was a big fan of it, and also like some kind of cultural actors, some older generation cultural actors. And then when he came into politics, he kind of continued to be committed to funding certain things, but in a way that some people find it not justifiable. Like he wouldn't fund an idea, a project idea, but rather he would fund a kind of established people who might not be producing something interesting, but rather it's kind of a traditional cinema, theater anyway. So yeah, it's and he's famous for like being an avid art collector. So he has this like huge art collection, including Damien Hirst and other well-known artists. And also he's well known for collecting animals like zebras or an albino peacock or penguins, you know. So yeah, call it whatever you want. Like you can look at it from either side. Maybe he's doing something good by funding these institutions or by collecting these kind of animals or art. But on the other hand, it's a very it's kind of an individual passion of a person, serving also his own pleasures.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I mentioned it's like a folly, what you see at the end, and you know, this kind of self-contained, as you say, taming the garden in the title of the film, this way of kind of preserving a very manicured version of nature. And you know, the way you're describing him, he really sounds like a throwback to French royalty of the 18th century, or even King Leopold of Belgium, you know, importing exotic species for his zoo. I mean, does he still have that kind of image in Georgia after he served as prime minister? Is there something unattainable or unreachable about him, something kind of exoticized and kind of private?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, after he left his position as the prime minister, he became the leader of the political party that is in charge of the government and parliament right now. A couple of months ago, he stepped away from this position, saying he's leaving politics totally. But I mean, he is the most powerful man in the country, but he is also the most inaccessible person. So he's the one who determines the course of events in the whole country, just like in the film. But he's not responsible, even formally responsible, for anything that he does. So So yeah, he is in a way this kind of a king, you know, and an unapproachable person. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Sun King. I mean, there's an allusion in the film to a story that appeared in the newspaper about this. Is that how you first heard about what was
Yeah.
going on? One of the people, one of the men in the film mentions the superstition that seems to surround the idea of bringing 100-year-old trees and surrounding yourself with them somehow to prolong life.
Yeah.
So there are two questions here, actually. One is, where did that superstition even
Yeah.
come from? And the second is, talk a little bit about how the film came to be and how you even seized on the idea of the subject.
Yeah. Well, there are many kind of superstitions or beliefs why he's why he's collecting these large trees, and yeah, one of them is definitely, like, the most popular one is that because people say that he wants to live longer, or other people say that because, for example, two of his sons are albinos, and so people say, oh, he's collecting these trees to prolong the life of to cure, actually, this is going further, to cure his sons. But he himself said that he's collecting these trees because he loves trees. It's because of his dedication to trees, and he wants to preserve them, which can be argued about, because I mean, many trees that he took would have been cut down at some point. Not all of them, of course, because, like, the owners, they would want it for firewood or whatever. But okay, but not everybody. For others, it was, like, very important family tree. But anyway, that's another topic. Yeah, and how I heard about this, his deeds. I mean, it not just me. I think it was one day when the whole country, like, literally the whole country, saw this image of the tree being taken from its place, slid on the slid, is that the right word? And it rolled on the ground, and then it went and sailed in the sea, and everybody saw it on basically on television or on social media. I think I saw it in internet somewhere. So yeah, we all of us, like, it's a 4.5 million person country, and we all witnessed this kind of miraculous image. It really was miraculous. I had heard that he was planning to make this transplantation, but honestly, I could not have imagined, like, visually how it would happen. And yeah, when I saw it, it was a total error in my image. I thought I saw something that I should not have seen, like a mirage, you know, like, and it was beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful image by itself, you know. It's very poetic, and but it's also, it's like a glitch in the real, you know. It's not supposed to be there. I mean, it's made me think of so many different things. It made me think of, you know, uprooting, derooting, you know, migration, like deprivation. I don't know, I got so many ideas. So I thought, yeah, I should really work on this and make it into a film.
But it sounds like you had to throw the production together rather quickly to get on
Yeah.
discovering that it was taking place.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the process itself, it went on for about for 3 years,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
even 4th year. So yeah, we started filming from next year on, I think.
I
Yeah.
see.
I mean, on that season, it was just one tree. I think they did it as a test, and we all thought, I mean, the whole country, you know, because we all observed this process, like, he's on stage, so and we watch him do things. So yeah, we all thought that it would happen just once, and then as I researched a little bit more, we discovered that there was going to be more. So we waited for those more, and that's when we started to film.
Well, one thing that it did remind me of is a land art project. I mean, I was put in mind of 1960s and 70s artists like James Turrell or Robert Smithson or Michael Heiser, who moved a 300 some odd ton boulder from the Nevada desert to LACMA in Los Angeles. This image of these kind of macho men performing Herculean acts of moving heaven and earth. And there is obviously something very macho about the idea. Why do I do it? Because I can do it. Of course, you know, I can. And I wondered if you could, first of all, did you think at all about land art?
No, I didn't really think about land art, but it's the good point that you mentioned. But what I did think of is exactly the machoism, or the manhood. You know, like even when you see this tree standing erect in the sea, it has a very erotic connotation.
Sure.
And in the film, I mean, it's not very direct, but we did try to put this idea in the film as well. I mean, the way this the derooting is the uprooting is done, it's like by penetrating these long pipes meticulously deep inside the roots. It's a very, to me, it was such a direct image. It made me shiver a little bit, yeah. And even also at the end, when we were filming the park at the end, and I mean, we asked, so what do you do here usually? And they said, oh, we water these trees. I mean, it was such an obvious image that yeah, I mean, it fits totally to the idea that I had in my mind.
I was struck actually by how very different the reactions of the women were to the men, since you brought up the machismo of the effort. But it is really striking, of course, in the film how the women grieve in a way that, and most of the men do not. Most of the men just say, it's none of our business. He's paying for it himself. You know, I don't want to get in trouble. But the women, you know, experience it really as a violation of their like a member of their family. I mean, we just, I hate to say this, but it does, of course, recall the idea of raping the land, right? I mean, this idea of really kind of this violence committed on something that is sacred. So did you have that sense during filming of these reactions being so very different?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. At one point, I even had an idea to have only men in the film. However, all the emotions came on from the women, and I thought it's really made a clear distinction of the men in the film, and like the understanding of manhood, and then I mean, it was defined by the reaction of the women actually. But the men, I think it's maybe also a cultural thing that men, they support each other. Men are more submissive to other men, if I can say so. Men are more they try to find more they're more they try to find more comfort in what is existing, and they find it difficult to oppose to something, to stand up for something, because they have more to lose, I think, their job or their status, their reputation. And women, you know, everybody knows that women gossip and say blah 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 or bullshit, you know, so they're kind of allowed to express. So in fact, they express themselves truly in comparison to men.
So the men are much more reluctant to act out or speak out.
Yes.
And then did you get the sense that there was a generational difference in the way that people responded? I mean, I'm reminded of the older couple that was cherishing its chestnut tree, or the man who refused to sell his tree. You know, is there a sense that for most of the young people, it's just it's a chance to take a selfie, right? They're all following with their iPhones.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say if there was a generational gap. There were older people who were more open to complain, to articulate their complaints. But also we saw very young generation, like school children, who were, I think, the only ones who expressed loudly and clearly that there is something wrong happening with the nature. I mean, it was part of our material, but we did not include it because it was kind of part of the concept of the film. We didn't want any children in the film.
Why?
We didn't, because I mean, it was kind of a, you know, the a constraint that I put on myself and on the editor as well. I said, like, no children, no dogs, no cows.
Well,
I thought because it
you have a
gives
cat, you have cows, you have dogs, and you have children, so you struck out.
yeah, yes, but it was very intentional. because these elements, they give more life to the environment. They make it more common, and I didn't want to make it common. I wanted to make it more severe, so to say. Like there's no, in a film you construct a kind of reality. So it was for me the way to not include children, also to construct the kind of world where there are no children, there are no animals, like there's no this Eastern European village life, but something that is constructed in a way, or partially constructed, not totally, definitely. But anyway, yeah, there was this one scene where we had children expressing themselves, but it would have been a very different scene also.
So you left it out.
Yes.
And one of the things that's striking to me are the images of photographs and paintings on walls. The way that you frame images as a kind of tableau. And I'm wondering to what extent do still images, paintings have some influence over you in the way that you compose a film?
Yeah, yeah, they do. I mean, for me, that's also like one reason I prefer to put like to use these wide shots where more or less everything is in focus. I don't really like the like shots where some parts are blurred, the background is blurred, whatever, because it comes in a way maybe from the painting tradition where like everything, well, it's a tableau and every detail makes sense. No detail is kind of left somewhere blurred in the background. And maybe here something that had an influence on me, or maybe an inspiration or some. It's very much this inspiration came very much from Flemish painters like Brugge, Peter
That's
Brugge.
interesting. I was going to say Rosedale.
Yeah,
Because Rosedale, of course, has all these barren trees that have been struck by lightning, or barren landscapes. But please, I didn't mean to interrupt. Say what you were going to say about Bruegel.
No, and anyway, one reason why these Flemish painters were interesting for me was that it's not just landscape that inspires me there, but rather what is happening in the landscape. Like there's something wrong in this landscape, or there's something wrong with the people or with the nature there. So that's kind of the connection that I found there. That I found there in those paintings and in the film.
And I want to say mercifully, you chose not to use drone shots, which are very overused now in documentaries because they're so easy. You mentioned Bruegel. Bruegel, of course, has that famous image of the hunter with his kind of bird's eye perspective over the valley. And did you have any inclination to use drone shots or overhead shots?
Well, it's great you say this, because there are actually two
drone shots. Well, but they don't call attention to themselves the way that many drone shots do. I mean, I wasn't aware that there were, but it's not like you're going to see this long.
That's great that you say that it didn't feel like a drone shot, because that's exactly our intention. We wanted. I mean, I wanted to have this like the bird eye view of the tree in the sea, where you see the tree on the background of the sea, not just like we wanted to give it like more space. So that's why we filmed it with a drone, but exactly that was a very intentional thing, not to make it look like a drone. I mean, I think some people can still recognize it, like especially, I mean, some people from film, but yeah, that was totally an intention. And then spontaneously, as we filmed this shot, and then the tree reached the other shore, then I had an idea to make another drone shot with the perspective of the tree. So we put the drone right behind the tree, and it followed the tree as it moved. Like we tried to be like on exact as if the camera is fixed on one of the branches. So we tried to follow it like this. So that's the other drone shot. But yeah, I agree. We really dismiss this idea of a drone, and that we try to use it in a way that is not very drone-like.
Yeah, it was not exactly. It wasn't the cliche of these swooping shots of eagles soaring over the landscape that that are so often seen. I want to ask you just a couple last questions, but one is your choice of musical pieces, including Stockhausen's Vaga.
Yeah. So with music, I was working with my friend and colleague Celia Strom, and she lives in Berlin. She comes from Paris originally, and so we started working on the music from early on in a way. I mean, she accompanied me to some of the filming, so she knew very clearly the idea of the film. And then when we started to put things together with my editor Chris Wright. I gave her the very first rough cut. I mean, it was the first time I ever shared my first rough cut, but I mean, this time I had to because she was doing music. So, and then when she saw this scene with the smoke, the piece by Stockhausen was the first thing that came to her mind. So she put it straight on the on the smoke scene, and it was perfect. It worked perfect because it served really well as an introduction to a fairy tale kind of world. So yeah, the idea of this piece was to create this introduction in a mysterious world.
Well, and then you have the wonderful choral piece from the medieval choral piece by Solage, which is Fume, which is, of course, literally evoking the idea of smoke.
Yeah, exactly. But it was funny because in the film you see a lot of smoke. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's very subtle. It's, of course, it starts with this big smoke, but then there are many people who are smoking cigarettes, and then there is fire. I mean, the smoke is all over, you know, in details. And I mean, and then the words of this composition, it's all about smoke. But smoke here has also two double meanings, you know, smoke as smoke, and that smoke as a kind of a hoax, you know, kind of this magical smoke. Yeah, and then this choral is it served as a beautiful piece, an accompaniment to this scene of the tree basically crossing the sticks, you know, going from this living world to the world of the dead. This crossing the sea, and this whole scene very much was about this transmission from from the living to the dead. Yeah, referring back to Dante.
I mean, it's one I really was taken by the music choices. Les Chants des Oiseaux.
Yes, I always find it hard to pronounce.
Oiseau, really, but it's just a spelling with the
Yeah.
Y. I think it's just a arcane
Yeah,
spelling.
this is the composition by Clément Jancan, also a French medieval composer, and it's a very it's quite well known French composition. But what Celia did was that she totally re-edited this piece to fit exactly into the scene. So if you listen to the original piece, it's very different. And what with the idea in this scene, you know, as you see in the film, I mean, these sprinkles and these like people, the men first mowing the lawn, then the birds, you know, like this park is full of sounds of the birds. And we wanted to create a kind of festive environment. In a way, we subvert the film. We subvert the point of view, and here we look from the point of view of the winner of this powerful man. Kind of celebrate. It's a celebration. So we wanted this very celebratory music there. But however, you missed one more composition there.
I was about to say it, but you can say it. It's strange songs.
Well, yeah, it's not really a composition. I mean, the composition was created in sound design, but it's sounds of birds. Strange, actually, it's strange sounds of birds by Ute Wassermann, a German vocalist. So we used the sounds of birds from her composition to weave it with the real sounds of the strange birds in the
No,
park.
it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, again, it kind of recalls 18th century follies. I mean, you know, this whole fanciful world is with the jets of water, like the fountains of Versailles.
Yeah,
you know, something kind of rococo about the whole thing, and kind of ridiculous, but kind of delightful, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I have a last question. This is going to be out of left field, but are you familiar with Dr. Seuss's Yertle the Turtle?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so Dr. Seuss, I mention it because this is really one of the great film versions of Yertle the Turtle. So Yertle the Turtle is, Dr. Seuss is a beloved children's book author from the US. And Yertle the Turtle is the story of a turtle, a kind of an asshole turtle. He thinks he's better than all the other turtles in the pond. So he insists that everything that he can see, he owns. So he wants to see more and more. So he insists that each turtle get on the back of the other turtle so they can stack themselves one on top of the other, and he can be at the top, and everything that he casts his eye on, that's his kingdom. And of course, by the end, he's all the way at the top, and everyone's back is breaking and they're itching and they're tickling. And of course, one of them says, I've had enough, I'm fed up, and gets off. And then he ends up collapsing and he becomes the king of mud. So I'll have to send you a copy, but I feel like it's just a perfect kind of children's book version of your film.
Yeah, it looks like, it sounds like that.
Anyway, I want to
But
thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We'll have you in MoMA and Lincoln Center before too long. Thank you.
thanks, Josh. It was a pleasure speaking with you.